5:30 in the evening on Tuesday, February 11th, 2020. I'd like to call this special meeting of the Colerain Township Board of Trustees to order. Mrs. Harlow, if you'd please call the attendance roll.
Mr. Rushigopan?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
And Mr. Wallace?
Here. Mr. Mills, do you want to take that first item?
Sure. So this is a different format than we usually have, but the board requested a special meeting for the purpose of holding a work session on two items. The first being the resolution to establish rules of procedure for the trustee meeting, and that was an item that was brought by Trustee Wallert. This item has been brought before the board on two other occasions. It was the first reading on January 2nd at the special organizational meeting, and then it was discussed on January 14th at the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. So that's the background I have for you.
Okay. Matt, did you want to comment first, as this is your motion?
Sure. Just to bring us up to date, the first time it was brought to the floor, there were some changes. Let me backtrack. Yes, the first time there were some changes suggested by a number of people, citizens, legal, Mr. Weckback, Mr. Mills, the trustees here, and I made those changes as indicated, and that's in the V2, version 2 copy that you see in the packet for this evening. On the 12th, Trustee Unger had some suggested changes that I actually did not put in because I knew that we would be having the work session today, and I do have those changes with me now to refer to. The idea, so there are a lot of townships in the state of Ohio that actually have rules of procedure. We would be the first in Hamilton County, and to me it's an important benchmark because it shows citizens what they could expect exactly at the meetings and put some boundaries on what trustees can and can't do, and it applies to everyone, and I think that's important. One of the things that I think is necessary when people come here, that they feel whether we decide in their favor or not, that they feel like they always get a fair share, and there's a process that works for them just like everybody else. It's part of the efficacy of government, and that's my reasoning for that.
Okay, Raj, did you have any comments?
Yes, thanks, Lane. Matt, I really appreciate your hard work on this. You did a tremendous job to put together this draft, and there are some changes need to be done, and I really appreciate that, your hard work. And I got the copy of the corrections copy Mr. Hunger gave me at the last meeting. So I went over, since we don't talk each other, and so I thought this will be the good time to discuss. Then I'll see in the page 1 and A1, I like to say in the bottom line says attend meetings not only when decisions are made, but also when topics of a public nature are discussed. I want to take the public nature because here we talk about the township matters, Colerain Township. It's vital, when you put like a public nature, it's got a broad spectrum to it. So I like to change to public nature to township matters. Then everything looks very good up here, and then I wrote it down some changes I'll see. I think the page 3, paragraph 2, about place, instead of places, limitations on the time, instead of places, I would say place. And in the line number 5, same paragraph 2, that's on page 3, that is content neutral, narrowly construed. I think I like to take this in a manner that is content neutral, narrowly construed, need to be deleted. Okay, then
Mr. Rajagopal, let me go back on, what did you want on the time, comma, place, comma, and manner? You wanted that to be places or place to be taken out? I didn't understand.
Okay, let me read that. That's para 2, number 2. Regular meetings are held in order to discuss, deliberate, and conduct township business in a public setting. The board is committed in providing, it says, you put providing, I'll say to provide, take it out of providing, put provide, meeting attendees the right to be heard at such meeting, but place, that's what I put, this is here, place.
Okay.
Place limitation of the time, place, and manner of access to such meetings. That's it, and leave it there and take it up in a manner that is content and neutral, narrowly construed, and, this kind of broad
You want to take out
spectrum.
those last 15?
Last 2 lines. Okay, just stop it at the, to time, place, and manner of access to such meetings. That'll make some more content and meanings to it. And then I'm going to page 4, and Mr. Unger added some more in the bottom of the line of 7A. And I think he put something, then I don't think so. We will stop. I'm going to read that 7A. Presentation are offered by the administrator or grade of administrator. Member of the Board of Trustees may also request presentation time for the relevant guest. These presentations may include elected or appointed officials for the representatives, regardless of political party, offering policy updates. Elected officials must represent some of the entire township at some level of government and may not use the forum for the electioneering. I think we'll stop it right there. I think Mr. Unger added a couple more lines to it.
And I just wanted to, what I had added was, or appointed officials who are appointed or elected officials who are within 90 days of their reelection should not be scheduled for a presentation unless their opponents are given equal time to present. I would think if we had an elected official or an appointed official here, to me, if they want to speak, fine, fill out a yellow card or one of our public speaking forms. As far as putting somebody on the agenda, I would say if you're going to put in somebody who's an active candidate, meaning they're within 90 days of their election, I would think we would almost have to give the other candidates for that same office equal time, so that's why I put that in there. I would rather that if somebody's within 90 days of their election and they want to speak, that's fine, but they can fill out a public address form and speak in line with everybody else. So that's what my comments were on that.
Mr. Solomon, do you see a difference legally in how we're restricting, in a way, kind of restricting speech? I mean, we don't have a fairness doctrine anymore, but I see Mr. Unger's point, and look, the 90 days before an election, we're going to see every single person that's on that ballot.
Well, I mean, in general, it's really at your discretion. The purpose of a township trustee meeting is to address township business. So anything outside the scope of that, there's no right to speak at a public, at a trustee meeting. Really, the intention is just to go ahead and deal with the business of the township. So allow those, if you wish someone to speak, restricted in how you wish, is how I would say. I don't see any problem with that.
Those other offices overlap, such as the state rep or the federal congressperson or a Hamilton County commissioner. That all overlaps Colerain Township. But I would say if there was 2 candidates for Hamilton County commissioner, which the Todd Portune's former seat is an open race between 2 people, because the nice
No candidate has the right to speak at a Colerain Township trustee.
That's why I would rather not put them on the agenda as an agenda item. I would rather, if they want to come speak, they can fill out a card like anybody else. And I guess that's where we differ.
Mr. President, I would be for kind of a third way position of, look, if it's within that 90-day window, we won't put anyone that's elected or running on the agenda, and they can fill out the card.
Right, right, I totally agree. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what that
That
was
work?
mentioned about,
Yeah, that's kind of what okay, that's fine. Nobody,
I think that gets to your.
yeah,
your
that's what I
intent.
want. I just didn't want to set it up so we had somebody on the agenda who, was coming in to talk about something without, I can see where their opponent would say, hey, I want the same time. So if somebody wants to come in and speak, they can fill out a slip to speak and live with the 5-minute,
So we will,
limitation.
we will indicate no candidates within
90 days of election day.
90 days of primary and general election day,
Yeah.
I would guess. Election day will be placed on the agenda.
So how would that work if there was an issue, a ballot issue such as the upcoming Queen City Metro?
Right, because we have them coming, well, I know legally they draw a distinction between a candidate and an issue. We're speaking about with the sorta coming to present, that's more of a town hall, I think, but it's not actually at our meeting per se.
That's fine. I think I've captured my point on this.
Okay. Mr. Rogers?
okay. Then you already deleted item number 8C, that, Mr. Unger, you deleted it, is that right? That 2 lines? E, actually.
E, yes.
Yeah, E, okay.
Yeah, because just because we have a public hearing, that doesn't mean it's on that night or even at the next meeting, so.
Okay, then move on to the page 7, and number 11, under the trustees report, and B. I think this B should be deleted. All remarks directed to the presiding officer and must meet the same rules of decorum as a citizen's address. As a result, the trustee report is not an opportunity to allude to others by name or by motives. I think that is not necessary, because trustees report something that trustees can talk about what is intended to do, what he did for the township, what his goals are. That's opportunity to give the report what ongoing thing is intended to do for the township.
So perhaps I've been vague on that because I meant that more as a pejorative negative view than like, Citizen X is here because they won the Christmas tree light contest. I'm more looking towards, hey, Citizen B, they're not in it for your good. They're in it because they're glory hounds, and this is why they're doing it, and kind of put down a citizen that's there. I kind of feel that if we hold the people to a certain set of decorum, that we should definitely actually be above that level of decorum. And I think I maybe was a little bit not specific in the way I worded it. By all means, hey, this person's doing a great job. Thank you for what you've done for the township. I don't know if that.
Well, if a citizen speaks during the public address time and let's say I say, hey, let me answer your question when I get to my trustee comments, and my answer is not something that's in line with what they think, so I'm still allowed to disagree with them.
Yeah.
In a friendly way, say, no, this is.
Sure.
Okay.
I just don't want this to be a forum, and not that any of us would do this, but my goal is this is for something that we will use through the future, that no one would use this for kind of a bully pulpit to single out certain citizens, because I want to do everything I can to encourage more participation. So I don't know if there's a way we reword that, if we drop it. I think we're all kind of in the spirit, I think, of.
Okay, then move on to item number 12, saying it's a B. Actually, it's a.
The presiding officer requests.
Age, I'm sorry, it's age 9. Yeah, I mean, page, I'm sorry, page 9. B. It's B says, all remarks are directed to the presiding officer and must meet the same rules of decorum as a citizen's address. As a result, this trustee report is not an opportunity to allude to others by name or by motives. So I think that is pretty much same thing that you discussed earlier. I think that this trustee report, something is not exactly like a citizen's address. It's the trustee is giving what he's doing, what he's intended to do in the future for the township.
Yeah, that's actually the fiscal officer. Do we want to leave in all remarks are directed to the presiding officer?
That's under the fiscal officer.
Yeah.
Behavior.
I don't know why it says trustee. That's my mistake.
Okay.
But it's the same. I think you get the same.
So,
Do we want to leave in all remarks are directed to the presiding officer?
Well, I would say if the fiscal officer wants to say something, they
Okay.
can say whatever they want.
Okay.
what our
Gotcha.
fiscal officers want, that's
Also.
the fiscal officer's responsibility, that's how I feel. Okay, that's not pretty much, Matt, my concerns in changing the policy procedures. Please.
And you have my requested changes, because they're all written out here.
Okay, let me just go back to the first one on page 1, and then we'll go over, if the chair desires, we'll go over Mr. President's changes in the same kind of nature. But when topics of a township nature are discussed, the public nature phrasing is straight from the ORC. I don't know if we want to still wordsmith that a little bit, or if Mr. Solomon is fine with changing public to township.
I got no problems with that.
Okay, all right.
What item are you on?
I was on A1, public was changed to township.
Okay. Oh, I see.
Now we're on to yours.
Okay. My changes.
Yep.
Number B, definition, a meeting applies to a quorum of the Colerain Township Board of Trustees. That would mean if two of us are discussing township business, you've got a meeting applies to members of a public body. Well, specific to us, since some public bodies, there's 5 and
Right.
7 and 9, and with us, there's only 3, so that's why any two of us don't go out and speak in public. And, I mean, we don't have meetings unless we're here in the meeting room. A meeting is defined as a gathering of a majority of the Board of Trustees, which is in line 4 of B1, was my change.
Okay.
You didn't object to that.
Right, no.
B2, meetings of the Colerain Township Trustees and each committee or task force legislative created by the Board of Trustees in order to make recommendations or give advice directly to the Board of Trustees shall be deemed a public body. My concern with that is for instance, last year, Trustee Insko wanted to instruct Jeff Mills to go out and find out what it would cost to plant trees at 275 in Colerain. Well, that's a directive from the Board of Trustees, so would that mean that Jeff Mills, if he called a design company and talked to him about it, and called the state and talked to him about it, and talked to one of the other administrators about it, and talked to Public Works, does there need to be minutes for all those conversations? I would say not, because, I mean, that would certainly discourage, well, we would have to hire a stenographer to follow him around and type up his phone calls and everything else.
That wasn't the purpose of that, but I can see where, again, as a non-lawyer, although I did watch LA Law as a kid and loved the show.
Right.
Maybe it needs to be more exacting. Again, I'll defer to,
If we would instruct Jeff to, using that
Right.
example, make some phone calls and find out about putting trees in and come back to us with a report, well, have we just charged him with having a stenographer follow him around and type up everything?
yeah, no, that's not the spirit of, what kind of,
Well, that was my concern with B2, but anyway, so,
so do we want to make some kind of change to B2, or?
I guess I would just delete it, because if we want to have somebody follow him around and do that, I mean,
Okay.
it'd be really hard for him to do his business, because anybody who, if we make a comment to him at a meeting, hey, could you follow up on that citizen's question? And Raj says, yeah, follow up on that, well, then all of a sudden, your conversation with that citizen, there would have to be minutes from that conversation, so. But anyway, that's where I'm at on that.
Okay, so what we could do is, look, at the parenthetic at the end, meeting is defined in ORC 121.22. I think we can, I mean, that's pretty clear what a meeting is, and I think we can jump that up to the end of 1, if that, and then we've taken care of your concerns with that. Is it, Mr. Solomon, does that make sense?
Yeah, where you're just saying, just get rid of paragraph 2, except for the parentheses where it says meeting defined in ORC 121.22
Yeah.
at the bottom, at the end of paragraph 1 and B, 1B.
Yeah, it's pretty clear on what a meeting is, and
Yeah.
if it's violated, you end up in court. I mean,
That makes sense.
Mr. Unger, does that work?
Sure. A rare occasion may present itself when a matter may require the immediate attention of the board. The board may adjust the agenda or procedure or proceedings of a meeting in order to address the matter. This may include curtailing a portion of the public participation of the meeting. What I've changed is you have the above requires a unanimous vote by the board. I would say a majority vote by the board. 2 votes would carry that rather than 3. And what we've typically done is if something came up, we've motioned to change the agenda and then motioned to bring up, whatever, my item or Raj's item and vote on it. If it was something that came up at a meeting, that's why we do all these televised and sitting here. So that's why I wanted the unanimous change to a majority on 2.
So, again, I can go either way. To me, the kind of the thought process behind that is if we're going to do something extraordinary, like curtailing public participation, that it would have to be above what's normally required. I'm not wed to that,
Oh,
but,
I see what you're saying.
yeah.
So you're saying if you want to curtail a portion of the citizen's address, it would require unanimous vote. I'd be fine with that, but that's not how I read this. I'm thinking if something comes up and Jeff says, hey, the snowplow's broke, we need to
Right.
buy another snowplow, can we add that to the agenda? And I motion to change the agenda, and then we go ahead and vote to get the snowplow fixed. I would think that would only require 2 votes. So that's just,
Okay, so I can, to me, the important, and the important thing of that is, if you're going to curtail public participation, it should be all 3. And I can reword that to get the spirit of that. And
yeah, and that said, into my 3rd year here, I've never cut off anybody from speaking, so, if you want to adjust
Okay.
that, that's fine.
I'll take out 2 and I'll just adjust 1.
Board voting procedure, all voting is done in the affirmative or negative by a roll call vote. A majority vote results in the passage of an item. I wanted to delete the rest of that. However, all emergency resolutions must be unanimous. In the event an emergency resolution passes with a simple majority, the resolution passes as a non-emergency measure. So if it's an emergency measure, how can you say that it passes as a non-emergency measure?
Well, traditionally, my response would be that I think the ORC says that if you don't get the 3, it can still pass with the 2, a simple majority. It just, that 60-day, cooling off period, making it non-emergency before it goes into effect.
Okay, yeah, that's not mentioned here. There'd be a 60-day period before it went into effect.
I think this, when it comes to the emergency, we got to act on right away. So if you got a majority vote, I agree with that concept with the, with Dane. So go and react with the majority vote. I also agree with that, delete that 3 other lines. That just stop right here. All voting is done in the affirmative or negative in a roll call vote. A majority vote results in the passage of an item. That leaves.
Okay, so, Mr. Solomon, if I think it's a 60-day period, right? If it's an emergency versus, or is it 90?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I thought that it would just 30 days typically.
Okay. The difference would be is that I've seen in many jurisdictions, things labeled as emergencies that certainly in no way are emergencies. And it becomes a little bit of a default for boards that perhaps haven't done, or boards or even administrations, they haven't done their due diligence and planning, and they said, oh, I'll just put an emergency on it. And that was my concern, that it was a fail-safe against that. Now, with that said, if that happens, certainly there is a check and balance to that. But I've seen some very strange emergency things passed that have nothing to do. I mean, emergency is, to me, is that we're out of salt and there's 9 inches of snow coming tomorrow. We can't wait 30 days to buy it. An emergency isn't something like, I don't know, we need to, we need to pass the rules under an emergency ordinance.
A lot of times, there's times when grants come up that are unknown until the very last minute. Those are types of emergencies that are addressed
Okay.
all the time that might not meet the, hey, is this really emergency? But it's an opportunity for the township to go ahead and obtain possible additional funds. I mean, that's the
Okay.
one thing you don't want to do is kind of box yourself in the corner, so to speak.
So then I'm fine with however, all the way to the end of that operational phrase, just taking out. I think that's what Mr. Unger wants. And
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Roscoe, yeah.
Mr. Unger, Board Trustees, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to point your attention to the clock. It is 5:58, and we do have an executive session scheduled for 6. Just wanted to share that.
Do you know how much time we'll need in executive session?
No. But it's scheduled for an hour. We could probably get it done in 45 minutes.
Okay, is there a problem if we go to 6:15 with this and start the regular meeting at 6:15?
No problem.
Okay, let's go another 15 minutes, because
Mr. Unger, if I may, under the board voting procedure, all voting is done in the affirmative or negative by a roll call vote.
on
Would
your
the-
mic.
I can't even get to it, okay. Would the board want to mention how that roll call vote should be called? That it's always done in alphabetical order, or it should be done in any particular order?
I think in this procedure, it always says by alphabetical. Later on, you were talking about that in this, on the roll call, in the.
I'd be fine if it rotated with each vote. It doesn't matter to me. There's just 3 of us.
Yeah,
in the
but that's-
middle. Doesn't matter.
I just thought if the board wanted to discuss that, just wanted to offer the suggestion.
Okay. On D2, even after a robust debate, the board may not be prepared to vote on a resolution. Several options exist. A trustee may motion to postpone the resolution and gather more information. The item may be tabled temporarily to address questions so that the item can be voted on later in the same meeting. I wanted to change that to a future meeting, because if somebody's here for an issue and we end up tabling it, I think that they should know that it's not going to come up again later that evening after they leave. So I would, if we can't arrive at a vote and we decide to table something, I would rather that it got moved to a future meeting.
I agree with that. Also, the same token, on the last line, if you read this, the item be withdrawn at the request of the mover, but only if no trustee present object, but it should be an objection.
Okay.
What do you think, Matt? It should be present objection.
Presents an objection.
Yeah, presents an objection, yeah, gotcha.
And you can also put the same meeting or future meeting too, just to, again, to give yourself.
But I just think if we debate something and it just arrives at we can't decide and we need to table it, I don't think it should come back up that same night, in fairness to people that are sitting here for 2.5 hours waiting for their item to come up, and all of a sudden it gets tabled, and then, then we bring it back up half an hour later. I don't know what would change, so I would rather it got pushed off to a future meeting.
Yeah, I think that's fair,
On some occasions, a trustee may decide to vote present. A present vote is not considered affirmative, but as an abstention. I just think that if you're going to vote present and there's a reason for it, If there's a reason for you to abstain, you should just say your vote is abstain, but that's just my thought on it.
I don't have an issue. So a trustee may decide to vote to abstain.
And if there's a reason they're abstaining, they should also abstain from discussing and voting, such as, if it was
Should
giving a
also,
presentation to Elder High School, I think you should abstain from that since you work there, type of thing.
I think I should lead it, but
That's fine, no, but
Yeah,
you're right.
I got
but
you.
No, but that's not a good example, because
I-
that's gonna be some congratulatory thing.
I got
But
you.
if you owned a tire store and we were buying tires, you probably ought to stay out of it.
yep,
So,
gotcha. And that's kind of addressed a little bit in the conflict of interest too. That if you're, if you have a conflict of interest, you shouldn't be deliberating.
All right, then going on to page 3, regular meetings are held in order to discuss, deliberate, and conduct township business in a public setting. The board is committed to providing meeting attendees the right to be heard at such meetings, the board can place limitations on the time, place, and manner of access. I've always just kindly asked people to keep it under 5 minutes. I realize that in another time, a few years ago, that used to be a hard rule. But if somebody's getting to their point and they need another 30 seconds, I'm fine with that. But that's what I wanted to do, was just add the words "but can place"
Okay?
limitations, and that would be on 2. On number 3,
I'm sorry, excuse me, what do you want?
right here.
Okay, oh, gotcha.
On number 3, the schedule for regular meetings is to be posted on the Colerain Township website and other conspicuous places, I guess, as required by law. The next item, B, Procedure 1, the presiding officer will then ask other board members for discussion. Just put the word "then" in there. I was fine with the rest of page 3. Page 4, D, order of business, item 3. Upon returning from executive session, the presiding officer will request a motion to return from executive session, and then roll call just to confirm that the 3 trustees are in fact sitting here, or I guess the fiscal officer could say all 3 trustees are present, but it doesn't hurt to take attendance at that point, just so that it's documented in the minutes that we all 3 came back. If it is necessary to discuss or act on any item that was discussed in executive session, then we would motion to amend the agenda and then motion to discuss that item. Pledge of Allegiance, that's pretty simple. Presiding officer or their delegate will lead in the Pledge of Allegiance. If the presiding officer decides there's a scout group here or something, it'd be that person's prerogative to ask somebody else to lead the pledge. Nothing else on page 4. ORC requires that the fiscal officer keep an accurate record of the proceedings and maintain sufficient information to allow the public to understand the rationale behind the board's decisions. We have these meetings professionally taped and video preserved. The minutes that the fiscal officer types up are pretty much, this is the motion, this was the vote. This person stood up and spoke at the meeting. They talked about the sidewalks in front of their house or whatever. But I think that's enough for the typewritten portion of it. Here in 2020, we have very well done taped meetings, so that's why I changed that.
And that's also regulated by a whole length of case law in the ORC, so,
Number 7, we just discussed that about
yep.
candidates speaking within the 90 days of their election or being put on the agenda. So no candidates are put on the agenda within 90 days of their election, and if they want to speak, that's fine. They can speak by filling out a request to speak. Number 8, public hearing. I just wanted to add a motion and vote is required to open a public hearing. It's been the practice of this board that we motion and vote to open public hearings and motion and vote to close them. And that's what it says in item D. There's a motion and vote to close the public hearing. And then number 8, Part E, a decision and vote on the resolution will generally be placed on the agenda for the following regular meeting. It might be a future meeting after
Yeah, we took that out.
So I want you to take that out.
Get that out, yeah.
Number 9, citizens address. The board provides opportunity and encourages citizen participation. I would say if somebody lives in another township like Greene or City of Cincinnati and they have a business in Colerain, they certainly have an opportunity to speak here. We do use taxes from the state of Ohio. So if somebody that had business with the state wanted to speak to us, or just because they live in Ohio, I think they should speak here. I'm fine with letting anybody speak. I've never had an issue with that. Those wishing to speak, you all know there's a form out there to fill out. Moving to item E. We've always asked to try to please keep it around 5 minutes. That time limit may be extended at the discretion of a majority of the trustees. So if the board president didn't want to extend it and the other two did, then they could extend it. It's a good check and balance against the board president. Citizens address is an opportunity for the board to hear input from various stakeholders, not just Colerain Township, but anywhere. Moving on to page 7. At the end of the speaker list, the president of the board will ask the audience if anyone else had filled out a request to speak that was not called on. So if I go through all 13 of them and there's somebody that says, hey, you never called on me, I'm fine with, we'll come on up and take your 5 minutes. Number 11, trustee report. Trustees can share their comments or say whatever they want. All remarks meet the same rules of decorum as the citizens address, and when one of us trustees speaks during trustee comments, that's only the opinion of one of the 3 trustees. That is not the opinion of this board. No electioneering is permitted. Well, at some point, a trustee is going to announce if they're running or not. So with the exception of the 3 trustees or the fiscal officer, I would say, fill out a card to speak. If you are an elected person and you want to speak, obviously the trustees don't fill out cards. We're sitting here. Number D, if an action be necessary as a result of an item or items from a trustee report, the board or administrator will request a motion to amend the agenda so that a new or separate topic can be offered. That's the words I wanted to add to that. Okay. The new business section includes statutory resolutions, which upon passage generally are effective upon the effective date, not necessarily upon majority approval of the board. If we passed a resolution that was effective March 1st, it wouldn't be effective tonight. It would just be effective whatever the effective date was in the resolution, unless the resolution says effective immediately upon approval. So that there should be a effective date on our resolutions. B, the presiding officer requests the administrator to introduce business items to the board. Either the administrator or the presiding officer could ask for the resolution.
Okay.
Could ask for a motion. And then each resolution that is on the agenda shall be introduced in written form by a member of the board, which those resolutions are on our agenda. So they're already typed out, which is what Jeff Mills does and presents to us late last week, so he can get them posted by Friday. Page 8, each resolution shall be read by title only or read in full if required. Some of our resolutions require us to read them in full. Each resolution shall be read on 2 separate days. The board may, by a majority vote of its members, dispense with the requirement that they be read on 2 separate days and authorize the adoption of the resolution upon its first reading. I've struck the words dispense with the requirement that a resolution be read on 2 separate days. If we have something come up, there's something on the agenda tonight that Jeff needs to buy, whatever's on our purchasing, a police car or something that's been posted on Friday. People have till Tuesday afternoon to think about it. If we have to read that first and then come back at the next meeting to buy a police car that's already been posted for 4 days, I think it's fine just buying it at that time.
So let me just add, so we're still keeping in as each resolution will be read on 2 separate days. There's just a mechanism to
Right, yeah. if-
to waive the second
Yeah, we can
reading.
waive the second
Gotcha.
reading just so we can get our business done.
Okay.
And these are all changes that I presented on January 12th to Matt and Raj. There's nothing else on page 8. On page 9, the fiscal officer, at the invitation of the presiding officer, will share any comments. I changed it to the fiscal officer will be provided reasonable time to make any comments, whether or not the president of the board wants them to. I think the fiscal officer should have a chance to speak. It's an elected office, and welcome to the fiscal officer, and please, whatever you want to say for yourself. B, all remarks are directed to the presiding officer and must meet the same rules of decorum as the citizen address. I've changed that to all remarks meet the same rules of decorum as citizen address. If the fiscal officer wants to make a remark, they don't necessarily need to address it to the president.
We deleted that.
Yeah.
Okay,
We deleted that whole section B.
okay. Then moving along to second last page. Executive sessions are an exception to the Ohio Revised Code Open Meetings Act, but only under specific conditions. You had 7,
there's nine.
there are 9 listed, so I was going to recommend not putting a number there because that number could change.
Absolutely.
And so I would just put only under specific conditions, which that's in the Ohio Revised Code, what those conditions are. And in fact, you've got 9 of them listed here anyway. You've got,
Right, now, number 8, we can't change, that's Ohio,
right,
where it has to be unanimous with economic development. It cannot be a majority.
Correct.
So we cannot change that one. That's,
I thought that changed last September to 2.
No, that was the TIF statute.
Okay, well, that's fine. The board may, at its discretion, include or exclude any member of the public from executive session. Trustees, special invitees, and employees or staff members that the board deems appropriate are allowed to be present for executive session. All others are excluded from, I just changed the words of the meeting to executive
Executive
session so
sessions.
that you knew what that was.
Correct.
Second last, this is the last thing. Item E, action, the board may not vote or take any official action in an executive session. All votes take place in a public meeting. That is what we have always done. Any formal action that takes place in executive session is invalid. Well, of course it is. All of our votes are in public. So thank you for putting all this together. Matt, these are my remarks. I presented these on January 12th, and thank you for considering them. And I guess if you, with no objection from Raj, if you want to put those into your draft that you're going to submit at some future point, at that point, I guess we would, if it's brought forth to the board, we would resolve and vote on it.
so what I would do is put this in the draft and have it for the next trustee meeting, because then it will open up to public comment, and which I've already gotten some feedback personally on public comment, but I think it's very important that we have, if these are going to be the rules of the game, it seems like we're dragging this out, but the ship of state is slow to turn, and patience and persistence are important, and I want to have as much feedback from citizens as possible. So that would be my plan going forward with this. And for the next meeting, I've got these and I've got these, and I'll provide that information. So
Well, we can only discuss it at meetings. and
That's right.
It was, you brought it up on the 2nd, I gave you my remarks on the 12th, this is the next meeting, so I don't think we're dragging it out, it's just, we only discuss these things at meetings, so.
I think people sometimes get the indication, all right, it's done, let's go. It doesn't quite work that way.
Right.
We'd rather do it right away.
There is some really good stuff that I've received here with policy changes, and I would like to discuss those. I realize we need to get to executive session. I can assure you that I've got the policies that you want to have us discuss, and speaking as one, I'm certainly on board with the accrual of vacation for new employees. I get that.
So,
It's Matt's issue, we did need to devote
Right.
sufficient time to discussing that, so I do think we need to set a time to discuss some of these. I know we've got, since we have some business items to take care of in executive session, when would that be?
How about before the next trustee meeting?
That'd be great. That'd be good.
You want to set it up for, I can probably get here around 5:15 if it's okay to start on a quarter hour.
Okay.
But when is that?
The second Tuesday in May.
March.
March. Whew. I don't know. Time flies, but not that fast, right?
In that case, it would need to be, well, we can have our executive session after that meeting, and I would at least like to devote an hour to that, because I can see it's going to take time, and there's some stuff in here that I'm certainly interested in, and I appreciate you adding this to the agenda. It's just, Matt's got his stuff too, so.
Sounds like you are describing a motion to table this agenda item to a special agenda, or a special meeting, work session.
Only because it's 6:20 already.
Yep.
Our other thing ran over, so.
That will be held at 5:15 on March 10th.
How about start 5 o'clock, work session, 5 to 6?
I can't get out.
Oh, you can get up for it. Yeah, maybe,
I could probably get here at 5:30.
it's a big topic, there's a lot of
5:30?
things to be discussed.
What day is it?
March 10th.
March 10th? Yeah, but that'll be, what's the agenda for, on March 10th from 5:30 till 10 minutes till 7?
Okay, just don't do an executive session
Yeah,
at
just
6.
if we need to have an executive session, have it at the end of that meeting. Is that set with you guys?
That's great. I think that as a matter of practice, I think this should probably be done annually or every other year at least, because I know that there are various changes folks want to discuss in the policy handbook, so I agree completely.
So I would motion that we table this item until that meeting that we've talked about.
Sure, and if there are specific items in the policy book that you want us to be prepared to answer, please share those with us ahead of the meeting, and we'll be able to talk in an educated manner on it.
That's a great idea.
Mr. Solomon, are we allowed to make a motion in a work session?
Oh, yes.
Okay, for a future meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll second Mr. Unger's motion.
It's been motioned and seconded to table this until 5:30 on Tuesday, March 10th, and that will be that whole hour and a half. So it's been motioned and seconded. Is there any other discussion?
No,
Matt?
None for me?
Heather, would you please call a vote?
Mr. Rajagopal?
aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
And with that, I guess, is it proper to adjourn this meeting and then start the other meeting right away? Okay. I will take a motion to adjourn the special meeting of the Board of Trustees.
Motion to adjourn the work session special meeting of the Board of Trustees?
I will second it. Is there any discussion?
None?
Hearing none, Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
The special meeting of the Board of Trustees is adjourned at 6:19 PM on February 11th, 2020.